This week, Masonry takes a stand against organized religion? We'll take a look at an article from 1950 and see the schism that started to emerge. Then we'll read a piece brand new from Brother Mark St. Cyr on the state of the craft. And here's a hint. It's not too hot. All this and more. Stay tuned.
Welcome back to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry. Here's your host, Brother Robert Johnson.
Welcome back to the show. This is episode number 671. My thanks goes out to our contributors, fellows, producers, and legacy partners of the WCY podcast for all of your assistance in producing quality Masonic education that comes in this audio format. We've been doing it since July of 2011. It's no small endeavor. Takes hours of work on top of what we all have. Work, kids, spouses, family issues, the fraternity. Sure. So, if you are out there thinking, how can you help support this program? Then head on over to WCYpodcast.com, click on Support the Show, and check out the various options. Presentations and events coming up. Well, June 7th is coming up fast. It is going to be a day of incredible speakers, and that is not because I'm there. It'll actually be because we've got a number of great other Masonic speakers there. I mean, I'll be there too, but I'm very excited to be alongside some of the most eccentric minds in Masonic education coming together for the San Antonio Esoteric Summit, Saturday, June 7th. It's going to be an all-day event. There'll be speakers, including Jeff Bennett, Ben Williams, Frank Zapp, Dirk Hughes, myself, Rodney McGilvery, and TJ Brumfield. You can get tickets at the link on our website, WCYpodcast.com. Click on the presentation schedule, and you'll see a little flyer under announcements. You can click that. Now, it is the weekend before Father's Day, and the following week, I'll be at Esotericon. I'll be set up with Skull and Crown Limited. And of course, before that happens, in May, the 2nd through the 4th, we've got the Midwest Conference of Masonic Education. Tons of guys from my lodge are going, Space Novum 1183, but some highlights for you all. This is an incredible opportunity. We've got Dr. Heather K. Calloway, Brother Daniel Gardner, Brother Adam Kendall, Chris Hodap, and Steve Harrison will all be there doing presentations, talking, selling books and things. It's going to be awesome. In addition to those things, we've also got great workshops and things that'll be happening. All the information on what you need to register to come and for the conference hotel can all be found on mcme1949.org. So please check it out. It is maybe the most important Masonic conference to attend this year. In fact, it's probably the one to attend every year because it is an official sort of Grand Lodge sanctioned thing. And what I should mention is that it was the Midwest Conference, but we have accepted states from all over the place. And in fact, because of this, 53% of the quote-unquote regular Masons in the United States are represented at the Midwest Conference of Masonic Education. So if you're a state out there like Wisconsin who loves to attend but isn't a member, let's make that happen. Let's get you back in the conference. Kansas, looking at you too. There's a number of states that used to be members, pulled out for whatever reason, but now it's time to come back, guys. We're doing the great work, and you want to make sure that your members in your states are represented. So let's get into the education this week. We are looking at the September 1950 issue of the New Age. Of course, this is the Scottish Rite Freemasonry of the Southern Jurisdiction's official publication started by, I believe, Henry Cowell. I'll be reading from the actual paper, so if you hear a page turn, that's why. This particular magazine is known for its wide variety of topics. Sometimes you get a flair, or you'll get a sort of sense of the state of the nation. When we've read pieces before, we've heard things that seem nationalistic. We see and hear things that seem to be more overtly Christian in nature. But I ask you to look past those things to the deeper meaning of the text and what they're trying to convey in these articles. So, without further ado, this one is called Halt! Who Goes There? By Thomas C. Quickle, 32nd degree KCCH, Buckner, Missouri. We of the Scottish Rite Freemasonry must cease our hush-hush attitude, end our period of pussyfooting and appeasement with forces that stealthily encroach upon the basic precepts of freedom. Let us be honest with ourselves. Scottish Rite Masonry has more than a moral obligation in defending the principles of liberty. Now is the time to lay aside veiled words, to stand forthright, unashamed, and bold. We who are pledged by Masonic obligation need not be afraid, publicly, to condemn a force that seeks through religious subterfuge to wreck the public school system of a free America. Catholicism, a word we seem to be afraid to pronounce openly, has laid down the gauntlet. Her hierarchy, under specific edicts from Rome, her cardinals and bishops do not hesitate to challenge the government of our United States, nor do they shrink from their obligation to intermingle church and state on the issue of child education. Neither do these mortal men in royal Catholic robes shirk their orders demanding free access to our treasury for the benefits of their private schools. The Supreme Council of the Scottish Rite holds as a basic tenet that there shall be, quote, the entire separation of church and state, and opposition to every attempt to appropriate public money, federal, state, and local, directly or indirectly for the support of sectarian or private institutions. Then, we who are sworn to uphold that creed stand guilty before God, our conscience, and our brothers if we bow the knee to sovereign foreign power and sit idly by while their papal ambassadors plant the seeds of dissension amongst us under the guise of religion. They, with a cry for religious tolerance, seek to confuse the ignorant. Catholicism seeks to dip its anointed fingers into the public treasury. They would have us believe that the education of their children is a sacred right reserved to them alone, theirs to operate and control. They bow to no state or federal authority, yet they seek to have their parochial schools supported by public tax money. Today, in the United States of America, a nation founded upon the very principle of nonpartisan, non-sectarian, efficient, democratic schools for all the children of all the people, the Roman Catholic Church demands a free hand to teach and preach its religious beliefs, financed by our tax dollars. And we are Scottish Rite Masons. Too long have we simpered and squirmed, doing nothing. Are we afraid of the wrath of the Pope? We have come to a point of crisis in our own public school system, not alone in the nation beyond our reach, but right here in our own hometown. Let us as Scottish Rite Masons face the fact that this is a heavily populated stronghold of Catholicism. Is it any wonder that a high percentage of Catholic population would defeat a two-thirds majority tax levy to support a public school system? In the state of Missouri, we have 14 counties that actually have Catholic frocked servants teaching in the public schools. 18 states provide free transportation for Catholic parochial school children. The highest-ranking Catholic churchman in these United States, Cardinal Francis Spellman, dared insult a nation's heroine because she stood boldly in the forefront to prevent federal funds being dissipated to private uses. This is a battle Scottish Rite Masons should have fought, not a woman who owes no obligation to an order, sworn as we are to guard these sacred rights of America's freedom. Halt! Who goes there? Dare you answer a Scottish Rite Mason seeking recruits to our ranks in the name of American freedom of the dominance of foreign papal state? The Scottish Rite of Freemasonry offers more than just more light in masonry. To the men who have been raised to the degree of Master Mason, here is more than brotherhood and fraternal association. True, all of these things are here too, but most of all, Scottish Rite Masonry has a militant obligation, and the hours before the conflict are short. Battle stations are sparsely manned. We need recruits, but under God we do not need, nor do we want men who shy from the fight or shirk in cowardice before the ecclesiastical power of the Church of Rome. We do not seek to sell Scottish Rite Masonry, rather to weigh carefully a brother Master Mason's courage, and, if he be found worthy, to seek his cooperation, ask him to enlist in a militant cause that dares speak boldly. Our nation's future, freedom from the insidious clutches of a foreign power, is at stake. Our foe is wearing the thin mantle of religious tolerance. This we know to be the epitome of subterfuge. Halt, who goes there? Can you answer a Scottish Rite Mason under the banner of democratic freedom for our public schools with no obligation to any sect or private greed? If we are to remain free to worship God, then we must educate our children without the dominance of sectarian dogma, ritual, or papal manifestos. As a Scottish Rite Mason, let us say, under the double eagle, I can do no other. Now, I found this piece to be incredible. Why? Replace the threat of the Roman Catholicism and the Pope and these foreign powers that the article speaks to with the apparent attack on the public education system that is happening right now in these United States. How many Masons know that we stand for the public school system? How many Masons know that Texas, Grand Lodge, and the Masons in Texas are hugely responsible for the public education system? How many Masons know about their obligation to protect the separation of church and state in this way and work to ensure that private institutions don't take public tax money? Now, some of you may think this is getting political. And to a sense, it is political because politicians have touched humanitarian issues. That doesn't mean they get to appropriate it under the banner of politicism. These are human issues that affect all of humankind, something we as Masons are charged to protect, to make better, and to take care of. The lawful custodians of freedom, the lawful custodians of wisdom, knowledge, illuminism. So, at your leisure, and at some point, I'd urge you to give this another listen and think about what you could replace in this article and hear its relevance today. Next up, I want to read a piece from the Meet, Act, and Part blog, so I'll have a link back to the article in the show notes, but this one is the latest from Brother Mark St. Cyr, and it's called State of the Masonic Fraternity. You're not running out of time, you're out of it. Over the last few years, I've been quite vocal on my displeasure with the inner workings of the Masonic fraternity when it comes to its central theme, making good men better. When I hear this, it's always presented in a very matter-of-fact, clear statement from either a brother or an advertisement piece. Here's what seems to be never asked in response. Great, how exactly do you do this at your lodge? The reason for this near certainty that it's never asked is when I do precisely that, the awkward silence that follows is deafening. Another curiosity revolving around this topic is when I overhear or read someone commenting on how much better the fraternity is going about advertising itself. Again, when I ask, great, what program are you speaking of, they reflexively state, the Not a Man, a Mason campaign. If I then follow up with a clarifying statement such as, you are aware that that was not a Grand Lodge endeavor but actually a Scottish Rite one, I get looks like I just insulted someone's mother. I can list far more examples, but for the sake of brevity, I'll just leave it there. I believe you get my point. Anyone that's given any real thought about what is happening within the craft as well as its current state is familiar with two very public venues. One, the Freemasonry for Dummies blog by Brother Chris Hodap, and the other is the YouTube show known as the Masonic Roundtable. One of that show's hosts, Brother John Ruark, is both a passionate Mason as well as a data guy. That show has been running non-stop, dispensing weekly Masonic education for over a decade. The only thing that has been as consistent as their show schedule has been the decline of our U.S. membership numbers. And I'm not stating this purely for effect. It should be horrifying to anyone that truly understands, or at the least wants to. As per his research and calculations, Brother Ruark derived via data he's been able to ascertain from the most reliable sources currently available. In the year 2040, the fraternity as it's currently formed is over. Examples being the U.S. Grand Lodge system, not Freemasonry or the craft. Think about this very carefully. 2040 is only 15 years away. That implies that within the next 5 years or so, the ground will begin to shift and heave in many places. The following I'll describe is all of my conjecture, but it is based in real business theory and practice, so here's what I'm implying. Within the next 5 years, Grand Lodges in various states will begin to face the very real peril that many lodges currently are turning in their charter or merging. This process has already been noticed to have begun. We're just waiting for the first shoe to drop, as the saying goes. But by all informed accounts, it's moved from a probable thought exercise to a far more inevitable one. After that initial heave, the next 5 years will shift into full-blown crisis, with not just a few in meltdown, but a majority will succumb to this same fate. The remaining 5 years will be the watch party status of who will be the last man standing or the Grand Lodge to go. But it won't be a watching of many, only a handful. Then, what? Fill in the blank, your answer is as good as any. Now, as I stated prior, this is all my own conjecture, but what I would like to make clear is that it's from an informed business perspective that's been garnered via hands-on practice at the highest levels of business. Dismiss it all you want, but arguing that I don't know what I'm talking about would be nonsense. Back to Brother Hodap's blog. Have any of you, especially those in leadership positions, noticed anything of late with peculiar consistency? Hint, another Grand Lodge, past or present official, is either being expelled, under investigation, or expelling or forbidding another Grand Lodge body from affiliation. This has now turned into an all too common occurrence. However, if history is any guide, these are going to happen with even more frequency in the future. It's just how things go when any business entity enters this state, the initial or the terminal business process. And yes, the Grand Lodge system is a business process. And just to reiterate, in case it's been lost this far into the missive, quote-unquote future is these next 4 years, meaning you've already entered the initial 5 of the 15. Please return your seat tray tables to the upright position. Begins at about year 6, just 5 years from now. There's no more time if left to its own devices. You're now in the initial stages of the final processes you've been warned about for years. This is that time where it's over means precisely that. Argue all you want, but the data is the data. To add a further point to this, the current happenings, as referred to using Brother Hodap's blog, are now supporting that data is not only real, but the processes that follow such data are already solidifying said data. Or said differently, every year going forward for the next 4 years will be fraught with even worse news. 5 years from today, year 6 in our construct, is when the wheels begin to come off, phase begins. Are you beginning to understand this time thing now? So let's go back to where I started with the implication regarding history. This is a qualifying as well as a quantifying rubric one needs to sort through in regard to whether or not there's been anything that not only can be done, but will. Every single piece of the craft bolstering media that I come across has one central theme: the craft's 300-year history. I'm also inundated with this president was a Mason, this business leader, this politician, astronaut, etc., etc. What's obvious and oblivious to most is they are all in the ancient past, usually beginning half a century prior. Where are the famous Masons of today? Insert cricket chirps here. Sorry. But for those that don't get the time thing, Springsteen's Born to Run just celebrated its 50th, and we are supposedly impressing 30 to 40-year-olds with Harry Houdini, or better yet, Harry who? Yeah, I'm being rather sharp-tongued, but I'm trying to make a point here. Let me lay it out this way. Pearl Jam is now 35 years old. Kurt Cobain has been dead longer than he was ever alive. And don't even get me started with bands like Led Zeppelin, AC/DC, and others. I mean, Michael Jackson died 16 years ago. Yeah, 16. So here's why this is important and why I'm saying this. If Jackson's death seems like only yesterday to you, the calculated death of the fraternity 2040 will happen in less time than that from here. Think about that, especially those of you who like to argue, not in my year, hint, we're in your year, and we are dying because of it. Everyone wants to act as if we've got time to right this ship. Hint, you have less than half the time Kurt Cobain has been gone before this entire system is gone. Again, think about that very carefully. Not as long, but less than half. Are you starting to get my point here? If not, let me make another. When you go to the supermarket this week, many of the perishable items in your cart will have a longer expiration date than you are from the crisis stage regarding the fraternity. To reiterate, left to its current trajectory, you are only 4 years away from where the worst that can happen begins happening frequently and in mass. You don't have time. We'll be lucky if we can use the current time we have, and that's less than Eddie Van Halen has been gone. The current situation that is killing this fraternity is that it's somehow based on a construct of a social club with a charitable idea for the community, driven by a top-down management system that eschews Masonic education for self-enlightenment, moral and character building through understanding of our rituals and more. This idea has not only failed, but it is on its last legs of proving it in earnest. We have to get back to the garden where true Masonic philosophy and education were its touchstone and raison d'etre, or its reason for being. This pervasive idea that has been clung to, now going on decades of "we don't do that here," has proved its own shelf life, but for it's now shown to be not only spoiled, but rather causing injurious matters that is killing the fraternity day by day. It needs to be jettisoned into the dustbin of history. Nothing less will do. There is no more time. Mark St. Cyr. Well, there you go. The real deal. The stark truth. We don't have much time at all left. And the time we have left, can we make that difference? Some would say maybe. In last month's edition of the Lyceum, we published some information on page 8 in the December-January issue of the Lyceum, and it was called Getting Ready for Membership Growth. Now, here in Illinois, we've got a big program on getting everybody ready for this membership growth, which is a combination of both membership retention and membership attraction. There's a large strategy in doing this in terms of what they're calling back to the fundamentals, embracing our roots, which has really 6 bullet points: mentorship and guidance, independent study, dwell in a sanctuary, management and leadership, you're not alone, and selfless service. And in those bullets, I think, sort of qualify the ways we're making good men better, but it also says, hey, words are not enough, right? Like, this takes actual action on the part of lodges and brothers. If you're interested in reading it, I would invite you to check it out. I'll put a link in the show notes, but you can readily find all the issues on the Grand Lodge of Illinois education page, or if it's not updated there, you can definitely find it on the Illinois Lodge of Research website under Grand Lodge Education. Very good thoughts from Brother Mark St. Cyr. I think he is absolutely correct. And I happen to know that John Ruark is currently working on new projection numbers on this whole 2040 idea and what that means for our fraternity moving forward. So we'll be waiting with bated breath to hear what Brother John puts together, but we'll see where it goes. Anyway, that's it for this week. I want to thank you all for coming with me on this little education journey. If you are out there and you've been thinking about this show and how you can help support it, please head on over to our website, wcypodcast.com, click on support the show, and check out the various options. With that out of the way, I do also want to make sure we thank one more time our producers, legacy partners, fellows, and contributors of this program for all that you guys do, those people out there who are monetarily supporting the program. It is listener supported, and of course, those folks out there sharing, liking, talking about the episodes on social media, sharing it with their lodges, all that good stuff. In any case, with all that out of the way, I want to say thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you all next week. And until then, stay on the level. For Whence Came You, I'm Robert Johnson. Take care.
You've been listening to Whence Came You, a Masonic podcast featuring research papers and discussions related to Freemasonry with your host, Brother Robert Johnson. Be sure to join us for our next edition.
WCY Media.
Well, you guys beat me as wrong.